How's it going, YouTube? This is Skul, and this is my Wii U, which turns 10 years old. This is my second time recording this video, and it never did that once the whole time I tried the first time. How about that? So the Wii U is now 10 years old, and for this video I thought I would go ahead and do a bit of an overview of the Wii U 10 years later. I want to talk a little bit about when it first launched, I want to talk a little bit about my time with it, talk about the games on it, I have got to stop turning it on like that, and finally talk about its legacy. 10 years later, where does the Wii U stand? Well, let's talk about 10 years ago when this first came out. So it was actually more than 10 years ago that the Wii U began its story. The Wii U was first announced at E3 2011 by Reggie Fils-Aimé at, as I understand it, the very last E3 that Nintendo participated in person, as opposed to all the E3s they did later where they just did an extended Nintendo Direct. The console was first released in North America on November 18, 2012, 10 years ago tomorrow, as the very first console of the 8th generation of home video game systems. And this is my Wii U that I didn't buy until 2 years later in December 2014. And to be clear, this is not a Wii U. This is a Wii U. Yeah, this video game console is the Wii U itself, and this is nothing more than just a controller with a touch screen on it. That's pretty much all that this is. And the Wii U was a big failure. Now, if you don't have a Wii U, you probably are a little confused about what a Wii U actually is. As I said, this is the Wii U, this is the controller. But most people, when they think of the Wii U, probably think of the controller instead of the system itself. And I blame Nintendo for that. The purpose behind the Wii U, Nintendo's original thought behind the Wii U was to create a video game system that you could play on your TV, and then if you wanted to, you could take away from your TV and play in another room in the house so that other people in your house can use the TV to watch sports or reality shows or what have you. And you know what? The idea does have merit, because after the Wii U failed, Nintendo made the Nintendo Switch, which pretty much does that way better than the Wii U could have ever hoped, and the Switch has been a massive success. It's one of the best-selling video game systems of all time. The Wii U is not. This is Nintendo's probably their second biggest failure ever, only besides the Virtual Boy, and this is probably the most prolific failure they ever had. The Virtual Boy failed, but no one really expected it to take off. I think even Nintendo themselves were half expecting it to just kind of fail off the bat. They didn't support it, they hardly put any on store shelves, and they discontinued it within a year. The Wii U was meant to be their big video game system of the 8th generation, their first HD system that they wanted for people to get just as much as people had bought a Wii the generation before. 100 million Wiis in the world. Less than 15 million Wii U's, almost a tenth of the Wiis. Yeah, this was a huge failure, and it has a few reasons for that. I would say that the Gamepad is part of the reason for that, which I'll get into a bit later, but I think the number one reason it failed is the most important reason. People just didn't know what the Wii U was. Nobody thought, well, unless you were a hardcore gamer who were into the gaming scene and actually understood by paying attention, no one understood that this was the Wii U. People thought that this was the Wii U, and 99% of people thought that this connected to a Wii. They thought that this was just a new glorified peripheral for the Wii, that it cost a whole ton of money to play games that no one really wanted, so why bother getting it? The number one reason it failed was because Nintendo failed at marketing the Wii U properly. Even the name Wii U doesn't sound like a successor to the Wii. They could have called it the Wii 2 and instantly bumped sales by double. In my opinion, I think they could have easily sold 20 to 30 million Wii U's if they had just made the name something else. But by making it the Wii U, they confused everyone and their mom and their grandma. You know, all the people who had a Wii, they were older people who weren't gamers. So when they hear the word Wii U, they don't think, oh, new system. They think, oh, new add-on. Not interested. But even if you were a hardcore gamer, let me go back to talking about this. This is my very first Wii U, or this is my own Wii U. I do have multiple Wii U's actually, but not going into that. But this is mine. This is my Wii U that I've had since 2014. Okay, so I got this about 2 years after the Wii U launched. In those 2 years, I didn't know what a Wii U was. I had seen commercials, I had seen games, I saw people stream games on Twitch, I saw people give overviews of them on YouTube. I even went to a friend's house and played their Wii U to play some Mario Kart 8 in the middle of 2014, and I still didn't fully understand what a Wii U was until I bought one for myself. It took me a very long time to figure out, okay, the Wii U is a video game console. It is a bona fide console, and this thing here is just a controller with the screen on it. That's it. It took me too long to figure that out. It wasn't until I bought one that I got one, and I'm a huge Nintendo fan. I have been a big Nintendo fan my whole life, so if someone like me has a hard time fully understanding what the Wii U was, how was the general public supposed to understand? But there were other reasons why the Wii U failed. I mean, going back to the Gamepad. Okay. For most of the early years of the Wii U's life, and by that I mean pretty much half of its life, Nintendo forced developers, if they wanted to make a game for the Wii U, they had to make their games use the Gamepad in some sort of unique way that you couldn't do on any other system. There are very few games that did that well, and most of them were developed by Nintendo. I think the go-to third-party example of where it actually works pretty well is Zombie U, where you need to use the Gamepad as sort of a second screen while you're doing certain tasks, but very few games did it well, and most developers just didn't want to bother. They didn't want to put in the resources to port games to a system to use features that they didn't want to use on a video game console that nobody was buying. So after the first 2 years, they just gave up. There are not that many third-party games on the Wii U. Because developers didn't want to have to go through that. Even the first-party games that made good use of the Gamepad, the only ones that really come to mind are Super Mario Maker and Splatoon, and even then, both of those features that use the Gamepad were replaced by an on-screen mini-map that you can activate with the press of a button in the sequels that were released on Switch. So, the Gamepad was just so stupid. Developers didn't want to use it. Gamers hated having to use it for games. And the perfect prime example of why the Wii U was just not a good idea from Nintendo, Star Fox Zero. Because that game required you to use the Gamepad in exactly the way Nintendo wanted you to, and it's because of that the game is just so hated by so many people. Instead of focusing on making a good Star Fox game, Nintendo decided to focus on making a good Gamepad game. And it was bad. And that kind of mentality is why the Wii U flopped, because Nintendo was pushing this above good games, above good game design. And there are good games on the Wii U, don't get me wrong. But the fact that they were pushing Gamepad over gameplay definitely was a contributing factor to it just not being good. I think the final point I have about why the Wii U failed is, going back to the games, there weren't that many of them. Even first-party Nintendo games, most franchises were lucky to get a single game on the Wii U if they were lucky. The Legend of Zelda probably got the biggest support on the Wii U, and almost all of the games on it are either ports of older games or spin-offs. The only new Zelda game that came out on the Wii U was Breath of the Wild, which very few people bought on the Wii U anyway because it was also a launch game for the Switch. If we want to go back to the first few years of the Wii U's life, 2012, New Super Mario Bros. U. 2013, did Pikmin come out that year? I don't even remember, honestly. 2014 was right when we were starting to get a few good games. We got Mario Kart 8, probably the greatest Mario Kart game ever, or at least the Switch port is. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, which is a really solid game, and definitely worth picking up. We got Hyrule Warriors, the first major Zelda game on this system, if you want to call it a major Zelda game. So 2014, pretty solid. And then, of course, 2015, we got Splatoon, the killer app on the Wii U, the #1 reason to own a Wii U, in my opinion, at least back in the day, and Super Mario Maker that September. Okay, the end of 2015, finally the Wii U is getting some games worth picking up. Like I said, I bought mine at the end of 2014, and it's because all those games that had come out by that point, and games that I knew I wanted to play, late 2014 was the perfect sweet spot, right when you wanted to get a Wii U. And then, right when it was finally getting games worth playing, nobody wanted to get it anyway, because we knew that the Nintendo NX was coming. That's what the codename was for the Switch. So in 2015, 2016, why would you bother spending $300 on a system that maybe has 10 games that you want to pick up? More likely 5 or less, when you can just wait a few years and pay the exact same money to buy whatever the next system is Nintendo's going to make. Which ended up being this thing again. This thing sold like hotcakes. It's still selling like hotcakes. So, yeah, between Gamepad support / being shoved down everyone's throats, and the lack of games worth playing, and just the fact that nobody even knew what a Wii U was, I think it was always destined to fail. And I think in hindsight, if Nintendo had just named the system something different, if they had made Gamepad gameplay optional, even selling the system without the Gamepad for even $50 less, but I think $100 for so $200 for an HD system that can play a nice variety of games, plus not restricting developers to make games that force them to use the Gamepad, I think the Wii U could have been a pretty decent seller. I don't think it had a chance of ever selling as much as the Wii, but more than 13 million units for sure, if only Nintendo had focused on gameplay instead of Gamepad. By focusing on the Gamepad, they wrecked themselves. That's what I think. So we just talked about why the Wii U failed. Let's talk a bit about the good things about the Wii U, starting with some of the best games on it. So I've already mentioned most of them in this video. So let me go ahead and go back to when I picked this up in November 2014. I picked up my Wii U, and it was the system bundle that came with a copy of Mario Kart 8, and it also came with a copy of Nintendo Life, which I never actually played, but I have a lot of friends who swear by it and say that it's a great game. So those are two great games right there, Mario Kart 8, Nintendo Life. Pikmin 3 was on Wii U, and I know a ton of people love that. New Super Mario Bros. U, which was the launch game for the system or close to it. And for what it's worth, that has turned out to be a very good game that a lot of people have loved, and even more people have fallen in love with thanks to its release on the Switch. We also got Splatoon, as I said earlier, the #1 reason to buy the system in its heyday. And you know what? Even right now, so many years after it came out, over 7 years after its release, you could still hop online in the first game and keep playing it. And as an aside, I have Splatoon to thank for the success of my channel, as many of you know. It's thanks to me making Splatoon content right when it was relevant that my channel got a little bit of a boost. We also had Super Mario Maker, which was one of the best uses of the Gamepad on the system. And of course, the very last AAA game released on the Wii U, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which of course was also a launch day game for the Nintendo Switch, but it did sell quite a few copies on the Wii U, and it's just crazy to think Breath of the Wild for all those years was developed exclusively as a Wii U game, and it looks and plays almost identical on the Wii U as it does on the Switch. Like, it's just a few pixels less in resolution, and that's about it. Breath of the Wild is an amazing showcase of what the Wii U was capable of, and it's such a shame that we didn't see more games like that. We also got some other games on the Wii U that I think people did enjoy, even though I wouldn't consider them must-buy games on the system. So we got HD ports of the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, 2 classic Zelda games there. We got a brand new Paper Mario Color Splash, which I've heard mixed reviews about. I haven't played it myself, so I don't know. Our only Pokemon game on the system was Pokken Tournament, which is actually a port of a arcade game, and it got a deluxe port on the Switch, which is totally worth checking out if you're ever bored. Yoshi's Woolly World is one of the nicest looking Yoshi games we've ever gotten, and I will fight to the death on that. And the final game that I think is worth mentioning is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, one of the greatest Donkey Kong Country games ever, and it also got a port on the Switch. And I think that actually segues perfectly into my final topic, which is the legacy of the Wii U. And I think the legacy of the Wii U, the biggest legacy, is the Nintendo Switch, amazingly enough. So think about it. The Switch is what the Wii U should have been. The ability to play your games on your TV, but also take them away from your TV and play them anywhere else you like. The Wii U flopped, so the Nintendo Switch could soar. The Switch now is one of the best-selling video game systems of all time. I think it has a chance of becoming the best video game system of all time, and it's because of the Wii U's failure. Nintendo saw what failed with this and fixed it with this, and now we have the Switch. Most of the best games on the Wii U are either on the Switch as ports or deluxe ports, or they got sequels on the Switch that are even better than the originals. So going back to Donkey Kong Country, we got Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Switch, we got Pokken Tournament Deluxe on the Switch as a deluxe port, and the best games on the Wii U got sequels on the Switch. Super Mario Maker 2 and Splatoon 2 and 3, both of which are amazing best-selling games on the system. Not to mention Tears of the Kingdom, a sequel to Breath of the Wild, which was the greatest video game of all time. So I think that the biggest legacy of the Wii U is the Nintendo Switch. But as far as the Wii U itself, is it worth getting now, 10 years after it launched? I don't think so. Not unless you use it for emulating older games or for just as a novelty to own a system that failed. Me personally, I love the Wii U, but I played it during its heyday. I played Splatoon since day one, since its global test fire in late 2014, early 2015. I love my Wii U. I collect games for the Wii U. I have almost every single game released for the Wii U in North America physically. I love the Wii U, and I am still saying it's probably not worth getting. And I'll see so many people on YouTube, so many videos saying, yes, you should get a Wii U. You can hack it, you can throw games on it. And you know what? Fair enough. But for someone like me who likes playing officially released games, there's not much of a reason to get a Wii U. Most of the best games are either on Switch or they got sequels on Switch. Literally the only game that comes to mind that's on the Wii U that you can't play on the Switch that's a better version of it is Xenoblade Chronicles X. That's the only game that I can think of right now. Most of the other games on the system are either so bad I don't want to see ports of them, like Star Fox Zero or Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, or they got sequels on the Switch that makes me almost forget that the original existed in the first place. So 10 years later, where does the Wii U stand in the annals of history? I think that it is an important loss for Nintendo. It reminded them that making games was more important than making gimmicks. And because of that, we have the Switch now and whatever succeeds the Switch coming out. And I think the Wii U will always be a stark reminder to them to never get complacent. Every company needs it. Microsoft got it with the Xbox One, Sony had it with the PS3, Nintendo's had it happen to them several times, but I think the Wii U was the most important one. So they can remember gamers come first. They did not come first with the Wii U, and the Wii U failed because of it. But because of that, we now have the Switch, and they are able to rise and become the company with the systems that everyone deserves once again. So that'll bring my Wii U retrospective to an end. Let me know if you own a Wii U or if you have at any point, and if maybe you plan on getting one again in the future. That'll bring this video to an end. Happy 10-year birthday to the Wii U. We will not miss you all that much, but we're thankful for your sacrifice. Thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned for more.